What is going on, Suns fans, and welcome to another edition of the Suns Jam Session Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Darth Voida, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'm joined by my other host, Matthew Lissy. I'd like to thank you for joining me and joining us and joining him.
Always. Good
Twice.
to be here, John.
Twice.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. It's another Wednesday. Thank you for joining the Suns Jam Session Podcast. Whether you're watching along live or you're listening to the podcast at a later time and date, we appreciate you hanging out, talking. Well, not talking. It's a one-way conversation. You're just listening. We're doing all the talking. But thank you for doing so. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're consuming this content. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit the thumbs up button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. And if you're on Google or Spotify or Pixel or like a New Era hats, I don't know. Just tell your friends. Just tell your friends. Dixel. Just tell your friends. So plenty to talk about today. I know that the regular season's creeping, Matthew. It's the 31st of August. 31st of August. I went on a rant earlier this month on how much I hate this fucking month. 31 days of August. It's just gross. And of course, on the last day, we're doing a podcast. And in typical Arizona fashion, our reward for entering the burrs, if you will, September, October, November, December, is it's going to be like 110 for the next week, dude. Like, what's that about? What's that about?
Well, it's been missing. There hasn't been, I think, a week where we hit 110. So it's been coming around. Has there?
June.
I feel like it's been like 105, like 105,
June.
106. This week has been hot, but it hasn't been this hot yet.
June 9th.
It's been a good summer.
June 8th, June 9th, June 10th.
You know the dates where it hit 110.
I do know the dates. I know when it hit 115.
Where it says 110 or it says it in your new truck.
Where it said 115. I guarantee you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I must have had a migraine that day and I was in bed all day. So who knows? But I know this week's been super hot, man.
Oh, yeah. And it's just, again, when you hear September, you start to think, hey, football's starting. We're a month away from basketball. Like, fall is in the air as much as it can be relative to Arizona. But then you always forget that September kind of sucks. It'll start to cool down in the mornings. It'll start to cool down at night, but not when it's $110, man. So again, I'm not complaining too much because I know that the good times are ahead of us. All right. So, the only thing that's hotter than the temperatures is you, Matthew. Perso says Jay, host of the Fanning the Flames podcast, says you're super hot, Matthew.
A little bit of a shadow makes me even more hot, huh?
He's on fire. So, but again, we'll still got plenty to talk about on this edition of the Suns Jam Session Podcast. We're going to talk about a potential trade target for the Phoenix Suns, or not trade target, unrestricted free agent signing. Go for him. Talk about some trade rumors that people are talking about. And then we're going to get into the Southeast Division preview as we are going through all the divisions on the Suns Jam Session Podcast. So until we get to that point, Matthew, do you got anything to pop open today? What are you doing on a Wednesday?
Tonight. Nothing today. Today was actually a migraine day, so I just got out of bed. Just rolled out of bed. I was watching Friday Night Lights today, and it's a great show. I've never seen it before. It's a really good fucking show. Have you seen it?
I watched the movie, and I think the movie just missed on me. It was shortly after, what's the one with James Vanderbeek, like, I don't want your life. What movie was that? It was Jonathan Moxon.
Was that? I don't know, but the show Friday Night Lights is actually pretty good.
It's Texas football, right?
Got a little teary-eyed a few times. I'm like, wait, is it just the migraine? Or
it's the migraine. It's clearly the migraine.
Room? Okay.
Well, I'm going to pop open a beer for Matthew's migraine. Oh, Jesus Christ, that got everywhere. It's all over it's on my computer screen. I'm still trying to clean up this mess over here. I popped it. I popped that shit everywhere. People are saying in the chat, shout out to Suns Geek who's watching along live with us. Varsity Blues is the name of the James Vanderbeek movie. Friday Night Lights. Really? Oh, it was like Wheelhouse when I was in high school.
Okay.
And then Varsity Blues was a movie shortly thereafter, and then they made the TV show. So pointless information brought to you by the Suns Jam Session podcast, as always. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is something that I know not a lot of people are necessarily going to agree with. And that is the fact that, I'll start with this as a baseline. Okay, so last week, John Gambadoro from Arizona Sports 98.7, and he's a Suns insider, tweeted out that he was hearing that the Suns will now turn their attention, seeing as the Kevin Durant debacled, they were going to turn their attention to try to obtain a post-up power forward. They have the cap payer exception still available to them. So he put that out there. Everybody starts, kind of try to tie some pieces together, say, who could the Phoenix Suns go get? And my first thought was kind of an afterthought because I knew that the one guy who I feel would be a good post-up, backup power forward wasn't going to be available to anyone in the league. And that was a guy who I've written multiple articles on Bright Side of the Sun. In fact, if you're an avid reader of Bright Side of the Sun, you can see an article coming out tomorrow or the next day about that guy. And that's Montrezl Harrell.
Oh,
yeah. Breaking news, John likes Montrezl Harrell. And the reason he wouldn't necessarily be available to any player, even though he's an unrestricted free agent, is early this year while driving in Kentucky, he had 3 vacuum-sealed bags of marijuana, got pulled over, and he was facing felony charges. It's like nobody wants to deal with that shit, right? Nobody wants to deal with that. But then Chris Haynes tweets out today that a felony charge against free agent center Montrezl Harrell on trafficking marijuana has been reduced to possession of marijuana and a misdemeanor, judge ruled this morning. If he's in good legal standing for the next 12 months, misdemeanor could be removed from his record altogether. So all of the sudden, he becomes kind of an available guy. So tell me your thoughts on Montrezl Harrell before I start just beating the drum for him again and everyone just tells me I'm fucking wrong, because everyone always tells me I'm wrong on this one, and I'm okay with it.
I've always been there with you, I feel like, with Harrell. I've always liked him. Right? I've always wanted him to be on this team. I think even 3 years ago when he was a big name on the market before the Clippers thing, I feel like I was going for him for the Suns to grab him and be something more than I thought he could be. Now that it's been a few years later, now that there's been the drug charge, which I don't care, marijuana, whatever, gives a fuck. Like, just that's not a distraction to anybody. If you were to think like, oh, that might be a distraction or something for him to join a team because of that, no, that's not going to be. I think this guy is a good player. I think he's decent. I think he's not going to be enough to give the Suns what they really need, the full season length. I think he's good energy. I think he can be not consistent, but he can be someone that you can roll out there to get the energy back up for a team. That's what I feel like the Suns do need. I think they need a player like that. So I am with you, John, on adding Montrezl Harrell, and it wouldn't be that much. What did he make? $10 million last year? So he's not going to be making nearly that much. I feel like you'll get a lot out of him for a small amount, depending what that amount would be. I just feel like the value would be good for a guy like Montrezl Harrell. So I'm with you. I think he's a good ad for the Suns, and I'll defend you, man. I'll be on your side. We'll take them all, us versus the hundreds, because I think he'd be a good ad for the Suns.
It'll be interesting to see what comments are on the Bright Side thread tomorrow after or the next day, whenever that article is published, because I agree with you. The only thing that would keep any team away from Montrezl Harrell when he has a felony charge for marijuana isn't the action itself. It's the fact that he might be facing some sort of suspension, right? So it's like, why would you bring a guy in knowing that he could miss half the season? But if it's dropped to misdemeanor, there's most likely not going to be a suspension that accompanies it. And again, I think that he truly addresses a need for the team. Now, that being said, shout out to Hey.0, who's one of our loyal guys who comes in and comments in the YouTube chat. We appreciate you hanging out here. Everybody hit the thumbs up button, plus shameless plug. He says, we can't have Harrell and Biyombo playing together on the court. And that is true. I feel like that would be a challenge for the Phoenix Suns, but it'd be on Monty Williams how to kind of stagger it appropriately to where if that was to happen, you have enough offensive threats on the court to progress the offense during those times. Because if you had Harrell out there, what he brings to the team is really something that is a need for the Phoenix Suns. I mean, straight up, this team was the 19th best team in the NBA last year when it comes to offensive rebounding. Okay, you look at some of his stats last year with Charlotte/Washington, and from a rebounding standpoint, he was in the 92nd percentile per B-ball index on offensive rebounds and 99th percentile in putback impact per 75 possessions. He's a guy who crashes the glass, grabs the boards, and that's where he scores his points. He had 11.4 points in 21 minutes per night with the Charlotte Hornets alone last season. So he's somebody who, it's the 2019 and /20 sixth man of the year winner. So he's somebody who knows his role, comes in off the bench, provides tenacity, provides physicality, to a team that is, let's face it, the Phoenix Suns are a finesse team. Tell me who's the most physical guy on our team last year? Jay Crowder? It wasn't JaVale McGee. He's not a power guy, and he's gone anyways.
He's not. No,
we're a finesse team. So why not bring in a guy who can meet the need of being an aggressive power forward, who can slam the glass, who brings that physicality, and kind of to Gambo's tweet, they're looking for a post-up guy. Well, again, going back to bballindex.com, he was in the 92nd percentile in total post frequency. He was in the 90th percentile in post impact per 75 possessions, which essentially is the points scored per 75 offensive possessions on the court from post-ups above and below what the league average of efficiency would yield, and 87th percentile in post-up draw foul rate. Now, I get that he's a 66.2% career free throw shooter from the line, but guess what? He gets to the line. He can put the opposition in foul trouble if need be. There's my case.
That's strange, getting to the line. That would be very different.
What a concept.
That'd be very weird.
Fuck, man.
How much can you put into Jock Landale? Like, this is a guy who, of course, the interview on Peach and X was great. Seems like a great guy. Seems like he's going to be a fan favorite coming out. But how much can he give us? Because I think McGee and Biyombo last year did a good job at staggering minutes. So when McGee wasn't playing well, Biyombo was there. Biyombo came in at a certain time when McGee just seemed kind of tired. That's why it's kind of weird to see him, McGee, that is, as a starting center for the Dallas Mavericks, because I don't see him that way. I see him as a guy that gets tired very easily, and I don't think he can put that much on his shoulders. So Biyombo, though, I think he has more. I think he has more of the energy that he can keep up through the whole season, more than McGee. I'm not saying he's going to put up the same production. I'm just saying he can play, I think, more minutes than what McGee what he did last year. So if you're buying in a Jock, I would say maybe no to Harrell, but I think Harrell, and of course you can't play them together, that Harrell and Biyombo, but you can stagger the minutes. When they're not going to play these two dudes, Biyombo and Harrell, they're not going to be consistent all year long. So you play the one that's hot. So I would love to see that. It's just, I don't know. I'm excited to see Jock. That's the only thing. I'm excited to see that dude to be a backup center too. So it would take minutes away from that. But if you get it for cheap, if you get Harrell for cheap, I think it's worth the ad.
Which you could. And again, like, he could play some small ball 5 for you as well. So if you want to add a little bit more versatility to your lineup, and again, I think you just add an attitude to the lineup, and he doesn't have to necessarily play a bunch for that attitude to exist, right? He's an enforcer. He's somebody who would cheer on the sidelines. Again, a guy who knows his role, Jabroni, and accepts it. And I think that that's something that this team desperately needs. As much as we love the team from last season that won 64 games, you think back to the previous season with Javon Carter on the bench, right? And you think of, the way that bench unit operated, even the guys who weren't playing. That's not to say that the 64 win team didn't have great bench guys, but there was just a different kind of energy that the team that went to the finals had. And I think that bringing in a player like Montrezl Harrell is somebody who can just add to that culture, if you will. And somebody who, again, I'm a fan of physicality on a team that's nothing but finesse. And that's where I feel like the Phoenix Suns really struggles. We don't have any physicality in the post. Ayton's 100% finesse. Biyombo's 100% finesse. Dario Saric wants to be finesse, but he just falls on his ass. And Jock it'll be interesting to see who Jock is. He's kind of a plus defender, so I want to see who he is too. I'm excited for him as well, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it'll be weird. I don't know what we're going to see from these guys, but I just don't know if the people that were fans of Harrell still are fans, that were fans. Are they still fans of his? Do they think that he can actually give something to a team? Because I feel like before 3 or 4 years ago, this guy was huge on the market. I thought a lot of teams liked him. A lot of people liked him. Now it's just like, no, he's kind of just second guess. So maybe that's who he is now, but I feel like I've always liked him, not as much. But it's like, if he's an addition, it's not going to be anything where I'm going to be upset about at all.
Well, and I wonder what the why is, right? I mean, that's kind of like the behind the scenes stuff, right? So, because again, after he winning the Sixth Man of the Year award in 2019/20, he'd signed as a free agent with the Los Angeles Lakers, remember? And then shortly thereafter, he plays the season in LA, doesn't have a huge impact in LA, right? I mean, he ends the season with playing in a total of 69 games, 13.5 points, 6.2 rebounds, but he didn't mesh with that team because nobody meshes on LeBron teams. Let's just come down to it,
No.
Let's shoot it straight. So they end up trading him as a part of a 5-team trade that includes Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kyle Kuzma to the Washington Wizards. The Nets traded Spencer Dinwiddie. Aaron Holiday was part of that trade. I mean, there's a ton of names that were part of that trade, and it's the Russell Westbrook trade. And so he ends up in Washington, So, again, his one chance to be a free agent, he went with the Lakers. And that makes sense for a guy who's a 6 Man of the Year candidate. And then he got passed around a couple times. He goes to Washington. He plays there for a little over a year. And then, or less than a year, I'm sorry. And then he gets traded to the Hornets for Vernon Carey Jr. and Ish Smith. So something in Washington didn't jive with Montrezl Harrell. We don't know what that was. I mean, he averaged 14.1 points with Washington last season and 6.7 rebounds in 46 games and 24 minutes. So it's not like he wasn't productive, but something there was a turnoff for Washington where maybe they just wanted Ish Smith back so bad, and maybe Charlotte did a good job of trying to bring him in. And then, of course, he hits the free agent market this year in a pretty, shitty free agent market. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it was with the Charlotte guys, right? Like you have Miles Bridges, who became a restricted free agent, and he's like batting his woman around,
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you get Montrezl Harrell, who gets busted for weed in Kentucky, which is like a place that's super hard on weed laws. So there's two guys who had an opportunity to kind of cash in, leaving Charlotte, both just cornhole themselves. So,
there's always a story, right?
There's always a story
behind every player. And once you go to the Lakers playing with LeBron, things fall apart for players.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, mentally, they fall apart.
Yeah, look at Kyrie Irving.
I don't know what I think. I think LeBron tells these players, like, hey, you want to play with me? You need to sacrifice somebody. So look into his family history, see if someone was sacrificed. Maybe that's what happened. Because I feel like a lot of these players, that has to happen to play with LeBron.
It's like making a deal with the devil, man. It's like making a deal with the devil.
Hollywood.
Speaking of the Lakers, there was a tweet that came out a little bit earlier this week that I just wanted to talk about just for a little bit. And it's from @BBallForeverFB. It said, via Sean Devaney, I know I got that name wrong.
Totally.
A Western Conference executive. So an executive in the Western Conference thinks that Anthony Davis could be traded to the Phoenix Suns for DeAndre Ayton and Cam Johnson. And they had a little graphic with it showing LeBron with Cam Johnson and DeAndre Ayton, and showing D-Book with AD and CP3. So a bunch of initials there. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Dude, we got to get the best player possible. Kevin Durant, he's going to be here. I can't wait.
Yeah. You know what? The thing is with Anthony Davis, every time you talk about this dude, you forget how great he is, and people talk about his injury instantly. It's like, well, if he can stay healthy, that's always a thing with him. So it's so hard to have any kind of case to say, hey, bring him and trade away to your youngest assets for Anthony Davis, who might not even play a full season the rest of his career. That's how bad it's gotten. But when he is healthy, he's a top 3, top 5 player. He's that good. So it's hard. I mean, my nephew texted me about it. He's like, hell no. I'm like, nope. And then driving to work, I'm like, wait, DeAndre Ayton, I guess maybe I would trade. But what am I thinking? Why am I doing this again with DeAndre Ayton? Like, here we go. Another trade opportunity for the Suns to give away DeAndre Ayton. And I'm okay with it. And then Cameron Johnson, I'm like, nope, that's my guy. You can't do it, especially for Anthony Davis, who will get hurt. And that's always a thing. So I don't know. But I was thinking too, like with LeBron James being in LA still for 2 more years, why would he want Ayton and a Cameron Johnson? Like, is that a weird fit though? I feel like LeBron doesn't.
LeBron never would
with that, right?
LeBron never would.
I don't.
I like what Jay says in the chat. He goes, "It's Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka was the one leaking the news." It's ridiculous. AD. You look at the last 2 seasons, he's played a total of 76 games in 2 seasons, and he's not getting any younger. And he bulked up last season, so he got too top heavy for his little ankles and his little knees. And yeah, he's talented, but I go back to how he forced his way out of New Orleans, and that's when I instantly stopped liking Anthony Davis. I mean, it just did it for me. There's something about, I get player empowerment era, yada, yada, yada. But like, how are you supposed to be a fan of a team? And then your best player is just like, fuck this. I don't want to play here anymore. I mean, it hurts your feelings. Imagine if Devin Booker said that. Devin Booker just signed a massive extension. And next year he's like, no, I'm going somewhere else. I don't want to be here. Maybe it's the Eric Bledsoe PTSD that I possess, but I don't like how that feels. So seeing that from Anthony Davis, don't even mention him in any trades on Twitter, everybody. Just let it be. Let him stay over there and continue to tie down the payroll of the Los Angeles Lakers. Let them be so top-heavy, trying to navigate a roster and have him not even be out there to perform. It's just let it go. And at the same time, I'm with you. DeAndre Ayton, we just re-signed. Cam Johnson, another. I mean, we have such a young, great, talented team that is entering its third consecutive season with the same starting five. You don't see that in the modern NBA. You just don't. So we need to, one, appreciate that, and two, know that this team, like, they're at that point where they are so instinctual playing together. You can't teach that. You have to earn that, and this team has earned that. You don't go and fuck it up because Anthony Davis, is no longer on LeBron James's good side.
Yeah, and the Suns, I feel like every player on this team, especially the starters, they know who they are now in the NBA. Basically, of course, they're going to grow, but they know what their roles are. I feel like, and they can get even better. But Anthony Davis, he's one of the best players in the NBA. But I feel like mentally, like he fits really good with LeBron because he doesn't know who he is yet. I feel like on the court he does, but there's something, the way he goes about business, the way he was just taken under LeBron's wing that easily. And basically, I feel like LeBron kind of just dictates what he does the rest of his life now. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to sacrifice that family member, and now you're mine the rest of your life. So I think Anthony Davis just has, it's a mental thing for me where I just think that he doesn't fit in with this team because this team is very strong. They're all about winning. DeAndre Ayton's the only one, of course, we always talk about. It's like, you know what I mean? Like does he prove, can he prove it on the court? Like all that shit. But the rest of the players know what the fuck they are. Like they're very confident in their game. And I think Anthony Davis is, but with the injuries and just mentally, I just don't see it to where he's a fit for this team in that way.
Dude's not an alpha. That's what you're trying to say. He's not an alpha. He's a great beta.
He's a younger brother like me.
Yeah,
he's a little brother like me.
Whatever you say, LeBron.
Sure, whatever you want, dude. Yeah, anything you want, guys.
Any other Suns news you want to hit?
Nah, I don't think there's anything else going on.
There's nothing else going on right now. So, all right. Well, let's get in to the Atlantic preview, the Southeast Division preview. This is a division that includes the Atlanta Hawks, the Miami Heat, the Charlotte Hornets, the Orlando Magic, and the Washington Wizards. We actually posed this question on Twitter. So again, if you're not following us on Twitter, please do @SunsJam. We asked who's going to be the winner of the Southeast Division. Pretty predominantly, the Jamsters said with 65.4% of the vote, the Miami Heat. Matthew, do you agree or disagree with the Miami Heat being the division winner?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think a lot of things change with this division ever. So
that's true. The only thing that changes in this division is they get more draft picks because they're always in the lottery. That's about it. So let's start. I'll start with the Wizards, alphabetically backwards. Let's bring up the Wizards rosters for those of you who are watching. Taking a look at what they did this past season to their roster, they added DeLon Wright from Atlanta and Taj Gibson from the New York Knicks. They traded for Monte Morris and Will Barton from Denver. So that's an interesting thing. When we get to the Nuggets preview, that'll be interesting to note that they gave up Monte Morris and Will Barton. And essentially they gave up, in an effort to obtain those two players, the Washington Wizards gave up Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The team also lost Raul Neto to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Thomas Bryant to the Lakers, and Ish Smith, who they traded Montrezl Harrell for at the middle of the season last year, also went over in that deal to Denver. This is a team that had the 10th and the 56th pick, and they chose Johnny Davis and Yannick Njozia. And they still currently have not signed members of the team, Thomas Satoransky and Cassius Winston. So if you take a look at their projected starting five, you got Monte Morris running point next to Bradley Beal, DeLon Wright playing small forward. The power forward is Kyle Kuzma. And, of course, Kristaps Porzingis is still playing center there. So taking a look at how the Washington Wizards have navigated their offseason, what are your thoughts on this team right now?
Oh, it's so strange. I know last year they started out really well, and there was kind
They
of a little
did.
bit of a buzz, right? And this year, I mean, it might be the same thing, but I think anytime I'm looking at Porzingis in that lineup, I'm like, how is the chemistry? Because the way I feel like it worked with Doncic, of course, back in when he was with the Mavericks, he wanted to still be the alpha. He wanted to be the guy and the main guy on the team, which is insane. But from the outside looking in, it seems insane. From the inside, Kristaps still thinks he's the man. So how's that going to work with Bradley Beal? The chemistry, I don't know. I feel like anytime I predict anything for Kristaps, it's a trade. I feel like he won't be on this team very much longer. But I feel like they have like the Kuzma Porzingis thing that could be going early on. It could be something where they start off hot again, but then it's gonna be like, is Porzingis gonna be traded? Is he gonna butt heads with Bradley Beal? I think of things like that, and I just feel like this team is just kind of a mess with leadership too. I think Bradley Beal, really good player. I don't know if he's really the leader though that this Wizards team needs. I don't know how long he's going to be on this team. So I mean, they did draft a Johnny Davis player that's a slasher. He's a great defense, finishes at the rim. Kind of what they need is defense, but I don't see much with this team. Like you said, lottery happens a lot in this division, so I see this as another lottery team.
Yeah, I definitely see this as a team that is going to start to deconstruct its roster if they don't get off to a good start. And I'm talking like, before the trade deadline, if this is a team that is 10 games under 500, which could definitely happen, I could see them starting to sell off some pieces. Now, kind of to your point, Matthew, Bradley Beal, he's not going anywhere. And I know you say that contracts don't matter, but he just got done signing a max 5-year, $251 million contract. He gets paid $43 million this year, $46.7 the next year, $50.2 the next year, $53.6 in the year 25-26, and then he has a player option in 26-27 when he'll be 33 years old for $57.1 million. Bradley Beal is going nowhere. So what I can see from this team is, as I mentioned, they might kind of take a stab at trying to be a productive team. Again, this division isn't very strong, so they might be able to pick off some wins here and there and see what they have. And if it's not working out, what I see is more of them along the lines of, selling off Kyle Kuzma, right? A power forward, $13 million a year. Potentially selling off DeLon Wright, Monte Morris, Will Barton, some of the assets they just brought in. I'd be interested to see what they end up doing with Ruri Hachimura. And then, of course, Denny Avdija. He's one of those players, kind of a productive player. But he's getting ready to have an opportunity to get maxed out at the end of this season. So they can offer him an extension at that point. So, it's a team that they've taken some swings in the draft. They haven't bottomed out yet, right? The Wizards are always in the lottery, but they're not at the bottom of the lottery. They're not hitting those number 1 to number 4 picks. They're always at like 8 to 12, right?
Yeah, I feel like we're always waiting for it though.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. They're not bottoming out. So I could see that this is a team who, again, the way that they navigate the front end of the season is going to tell us a lot about what they do. And from a Phoenix Suns standpoint, how does this affect us? What would you think about Kyle Kuzma on this team?
I've always liked Kuzma. I think he had the one bad year in LA.
That was the LeBron year.
That was the LeBron year. And after, he's been very productive. I think off the court, people make fun of this dude. He's one of those guys people like to trash. And you know what? He's cool, calm, and collected. I think he's a good friend of Devin Booker. And I think he plays very well on the court. He makes some great plays out there, but I feel like he cares a lot about winning. And a lot of people, he seems like kind of like misunderstood in a way. So if he played with the Suns, I would be very happy, man. That's a big dude out there that can shoot the three. He can just hustle his ass off and get some boards. But I mean, what would you like? I know I did see though a Donovan Mitchell trade that might be happening to the Wizards, which is kind of weird.
Interesting.
I saw that. Yeah, so
Kuzma would be in that deal. He would be
exactly
in that deal.
So he would be in that deal along with probably Porzingis. You know what I mean? So
what's Porzingis gonna do? They play up in Utah. That'd be hysterical.
Do you remember when they were trying to trade Booker for Porzingis, or that was a rumor? Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, back when he was on the Knicks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Kuzma's 13 mil this year, and he's got a player option for 13 mil next year. So, he's definitely one of those guys who expect to hear his name around the trade deadline. I guarantee you he's going to be on the move this year. So it'll be interesting to see how the Washington Wizards kind of operate this season. We're real quick from a perspective of betting, if you will, DraftKings
Yeah.
has the Washington Wizards as a plus 3,000 to win the division, behind only one team. Should we talk about that team, or where should we go? What journey should we pick? What team should we go with
Is that the
next?
Magic?
That's the Magic. Let's
Let's get the
talk about
Magic
the
over with.
Orlando Magic. So here's what's interesting about the Orlando Magic. Okay, so for those of you, obviously, again, who are watching, you can see on the screen the roster moves that the Orlando Magic chose to make this season. Know that this is a team who last year was 22-60 and was last place in the Eastern Conference. They had the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Added via free agency? Nobody. Did they trade for anybody? No. They lost Robin Lopez as he went to Cleveland. They had the first overall pick in the draft, so they had Paolo Banchero, and they had the 32nd pick, so they got Caleb Houston. And their projected starting 5 is literally like a who's who of lottery picks over the past 4 years. You got Cole Anthony at point guard, Jalen Suggs, who's a great offensive player, at shooting guard, Paolo Banchero at small forward, Franz Wagner at power forward, and Wendell Carter Jr. at center. Tell me this does not remind you of the Phoenix Suns 5 seasons ago, where it's just lottery picks is just the straight up the starting 5 for the team.
You know what? It does, but I'm kind of excited. They still have Markelle Fultz still, right? Didn't Markelle Fultz
They do have
ball
Markelle
out?
Fultz.
Yeah, so Jonathan Isaac, okay, there's an injury, right, with Isaac. Does he still have that injury? Because I love the way it looks on paper, of course, with this team. I just think there's a lot of exciting players. And I think they got the Paolo guy that, they got Paolo, who seemed like the right pick now with Chet being out this whole next season. There's something you can watch. They might have hit on someone good there. So
they still got Mo Bamba.
Yeah, I was like, Mo Bamba's still there. I've always liked Wendell Carter. I don't know, man. It's a lottery team, obviously, going into next year. But I like their 2 picks. I think Jalen Suggs is good, and I think Paolo's going to be pretty freaking good too. So, like you said, the Suns, but Josh Jackson, I thought was going to be fucking awesome. You know what I mean? So, who knows how that's going to always work out. But I think Paolo's going to be a good player for them for sure. And I think just Markelle Fultz still has it in him to basically kind of chisel out a decent career as a point guard. There's still something there with him.
Well, you look at this team, and as you mentioned, Jonathan Isaac, injured last season, knee issues. They're hoping that he'll be ready for the start of the regular season, but if he's not, obviously they have some other young players who can fill that void. Looking at their roster, who do you think the highest paid player on this roster is?
It is Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah, Jonathan Isaac, but it's not 17.4, but not guaranteed. Markelle Fultz is 16.5. Wendell Carter, 14.1. This is a team that when everything is said and done, they're $26.8 million under the luxury tax. And they're a young team, as you mentioned, a lot of names you just know, right? They've got Franz and Mo Wagner both on the team. They've got RJ Hampton. They've got Terrence Ross is on this team, Gary Harris. So they got a lot of names that you kind of know, and you're like, oh shit, they're all down there in Orlando just getting their asses kicked every night. They're a team that has a lot of talent. They remind me kind of the Rockets, obviously. A team that's got a lot of young offensive talent who just necessarily can't put it together for an entire game, which, again, reminds me of the Suns from about 4 or 5 seasons ago, where it's like, dude, we were in every game. We just couldn't close it out because we were just so young. And that's what they've done. When the Suns and the Sixers were going through the timeline and the process, we were kind of walking through that entire period of basketball together as fan bases. Now you kind of have Houston and Orlando are doing the same thing, where there's dude, we're just going to stock ourselves with young electric talent and hoping that getting the reps is going to equate to that time when they start to hit their prime and they're going to be fantastic players. That being said, their prime is not going to be in the 2022-23 season. Let's see. DraftKings has them at plus 30,000 to win the Southeast Division alone. Plus 30,000. Again, the Washington Wizards were plus 3,000. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you add Bull too. So,
yeah, they got Bull.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go next?
Let me take a look. You want to do the Horny Hornets?
Let's do those horny Hornets, okay? Can't argue with the horny Hornets there. Taking a look at their team and how they navigated this offseason thus far. They didn't add any players via free agency. They did trade for Bryce McGowens from Minnesota. No idea who that is. They had draft picks, and here's what's interesting. There are 3 draft picks, the 13th, 15th, and 45th overall pick. 2 of them they ended up trading. They traded Josh Minott, Minuet, the 45th overall pick. They traded him to Minnesota for Bryce McGowens. They had the 15th pick. They took Mark Williams from Duke. They kept him. And they're the team that actually originally drafted Jalen Duren at the 13th pick. They ended up trading him to the New York Knicks, getting some draft stock back. And the Knicks then flipped him right over to Detroit. And again, from a free agent standpoint, they have a ton of guys they still haven't re-signed. Montrezl Harrell, as we mentioned kind of at length at the front end of this podcast. Miles Bridges, who is a restricted free agent, so he's still on the roster. But obviously with legal issues going on, no one's touching that as well they shouldn't. Isaiah Thomas, Scotty Lewis, and Arnaldus Kulbuka. And you look at their projected starting 5. LaMelo Ball running the point with Terry Rozier right behind him. Our good buddy Kelly Oubre, Jalen Daniels taking that power forward spot in the absence of Miles Bridges, and Mason Plumlee at center. So on DraftKings, this is a team that is at plus 1,000 to win the NBA Southeast Division. Matthew, is there any way that they're a value bet there, that they can actually win this division?
No, I thought they were I was trying to look up Gordon Hayward. I put in Gordon Hornets. I thought this team was going somewhere. I thought they figured it out. I think they were blessed with LaMelo Ball. I thought that was a great pick, of course. He turned out to be something very, very special. Now it's just like, where are they going? What's the next move? Like, I know they had the things with Miles Bridges, so that set them back. But what's the next move for this team? Because they were on the trajectory up. They had to spend some money for Gordon Hayward, but they were getting names on this team. They seemed to actually.
I should have put Hayward in there as a starter, huh?
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't blame you. It's like, is he healthy? Is he not healthy?
I don't know.
I feel like if you would have put him in there, he was out next year with the ACL or something. So, I mean, that's bad to say. I feel bad for the dude. But I just think this team they were going somewhere for sure. They were a team that was fun to watch last year. Injuries started to happen again, and I was like, okay, finally, Michael Jordan's got this team going somewhere. They're going to be doing something big. But there's just nothing happening. Like, there's never anything happening with the Hornets until they got Gordon Hayward, and until they drafted, first they drafted LaMelo Ball, then they got Gordon Hayward. So I'm like, all right, what's the next move? Just keep spending that money, keep doing something. And now it's just back to the same Hornets. I feel like, I don't know how much LaMelo Ball can carry this team, or how far he can carry this team by himself. Kelly Oubre, love him or hate him, he's not a team player. He's not that guy. Terry Rozier, very underrated though now. So that's a good pairing, I feel like, with LaMelo Ball. But this team is just still stuck. They're stuck again.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't know what I want them to be good, because I love those unis. I love that court. I love LaMelo. They just need one big player on that team, and maybe it's Porzingis.
That's my bad.
I have no idea.
That's my bad. I didn't even put Gordon Hayward on here because, to your point, like, you forget he plays there. I mean, talk about the ultimate. But you're right. This is a team that's like, you get excited for. I mean, I think they were like our league pass team last year, right? Like, we were excited any chance we could. We were watching the Hornets, and they slowly just kind of dissipated because they couldn't put it all together. And they don't necessarily have the talent, nor did they do a good job of trying to accrue talent this offseason. Right, they really just kind of left it alone. They got Gordon Hayward on a $30 million a year contract. Terry Rozier is making 21.4, and then Kelly Oubre is at 12.6. Everybody else is under 10 million. And you look at them, to the luxury tax, they're $30.4 million underneath the luxury tax, and it shows with this roster that they've put together. You have LaMelo Ball is still on his rookie contract, and that's not going to last. He's going to enter, he's a qualifying offer. He's a restricted free agent next year. Has a qualifying offer of $10.9 million. So this upcoming offseason is when they're going to have an opportunity to really kind of, pay LaMelo Ball. And as well they should. But you got to put something around him. You got to put something that's a playmaker. And I know that, a big part of the Charlotte Hornets is they really were fans of Miles Bridges. He was entering restricted free agency, so this was an offseason in which they could have given him his bag. Obviously, his actions are completely unacceptable and unwarranted, and they're not going to reward that with money as well. They shouldn't, and that really hurts this team because he's the perfect complement on the court offensively to LaMelo Ball. He's a high-flyer dunker, Sean Marion-esque kind of guy. It's like exactly what you need with LaMelo Ball, and then he's an asshole. So, I mean, you got to deal with that.
Yeah, he was always talked about in front of Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges was never talked about till last year. It was always Miles Bridges was the guy.
No one ever got his name right.
But no one even talked about Mikal. No one thought of him as an all defensive team player until last year, right? It was always Miles Bridges because of the highlights. Him and LaMelo, especially when LaMelo got there, it blossomed. Now it's just kind of like, what's the next move to where you have to replace this guy? I don't know who it is. And like they have a lot of money, but then who wants to play in the land of the horny Hornets? Who wants to go over there and play?
No one.
I don't know. Nobody.
Nobody, apparently. Nobody. I mean, again,
the
the transactions speak for themselves. So, again, a team that, at plus 1,000, if you see a value bet there, go for it. But I really don't see that in any way, shape, or form. I see that this is a team that is just going to be kind of stuck in this is a play-in team. Tell me the Hornets don't have play-in team written all over them.
They do. And they will get in because we all want LaMelo. We do.
The NBA wants they want freaking LaMelo. That's what it comes down to,
Yeah.
So, another thing I forgot to do is bring up the win totals. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that once we hit the Western Conference for sure, because that's the fun stuff. Next up on the list, the Atlanta Hawks. Now, whereas you have the previous two teams we talked about didn't have much movement, the Atlanta Hawks had all kinds of fucking movement. If you're looking at the screen right now, you're like, good Lord, there's a lot to read here. So maybe that's just me because I have to read it. But you take.
I can read this. You want me to take this one over for you, or you want to do this one?
I want to do this one. You can do the next one.
You
next
like
one,
to read.
I like to read. I love it. I do. I like to write and I like to read. And arithmetic. Fuck that shit. All right. Via free agency, the Atlanta Hawks added Frank Kaminsky and Aaron Holiday, both former Phoenix Suns, obviously. They added Trent Forrest as well from Utah. And via trade, they added DeJounte Murray, Justin Holiday, Maurice Harkless, and Tyrese Martin. So DeJounte's from the Spurs, Justin and Maurice Harkless from Sacramento, Tyrese Martin from Golden State. So you got two of the Holiday brothers are playing down there in the ATL. In the draft, they had the 16th pick where they took A.J. Griffin, and the 44th pick where they took Ryan Rollins, who they utilized in a trade with Golden State to obtain Tyrese Martin. They gave up, in an effort to get Justin Holiday and Mo Harkless, they gave up Kevin Huerter. So he gone. They lost Jock Landale. He's a member of the Phoenix Suns now. And Danilo Gallinari, who was sent over the DeJounte Murray trade. They also lost DeLon Wright to the Washington Wizards, as we mentioned earlier, and Gorgie Jang to the Spurs as well. Free agents, they still have Lou Will, they still got Skylar Mays, and they still have Sharif Cooper out there. And if you look at their projected starting five, it's a good starting five. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Bogdan Bogdanovic, John Collins, and Clint Capella. So taking a look at this team, if you look at what DraftKings is putting out there, they're saying that this team has a plus 170 chance to win this division compared to the plus 100 and the plus 3,000, 30,000. So pretty damn good odds, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you look at that. The addition of DeJounte Murray and how much you think he's going to help this team. I think the Atlanta Hawks they're mediocre. I mean, I know they went to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago, but it's kind of like, who gives a shit? Does anybody get upset when this team just fails to make it to the finals every year? Like, does it even matter?
I'm sure Hawks fans do.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they hate it. Well, I'm just talking about like, the whole Trae Young thing. He's just a player that's just like, he's already a superstar, right? But then it's just like, how far can he take this team? And does anybody care? Like, I feel like, of course, the only reason I'm saying is because
such a West Coast fan. He was like,
yeah, but all I'm saying is with
East Coast,
with him and the whole Doncic thing, that's always something that's looked at. But I feel like everyone's kind of moved past that. It's like everyone's like, oh, you should have taken Doncic over What the fuck am I talking
Trae
about? Over
Young.
Trae Young. Yeah, over Trae Young, you should have taken him, but who cares anymore? I think that Trae Young, he has his team for mediocrity. Mediocrity. It's going to be that way for a while. There's not a whole lot of expectations going into Atlanta. I feel like every year it's just like, yeah, if they make it, it's fun. They're a fun team to watch with DeJounte Murray. What's that going to end up looking like? What is that? Because those two were in the top 4 of his assists last year.
Yeah.
Ball handling
Now they're on the same
percentage,
team.
the top 5. So it's like they're on the same team. And I feel like people are going to be like, yeah, they can work it out. No, both these players want to have the ball. They're going to want the ball at all times. It's going to affect them dramatically. I mean, DeJounte Murray was a all-star last year, but he had the ball all the time. He had it all the time for the Spurs. They let him go play on a winning team. Is he going to be able to handle that next to Trae Young, dude? Because honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. And I like to believe that these guys can get along and play well, but I just don't see it because they need that ball to play well, right? They need it to show up. They want to make the All-Star game every year. Trae Young automatically will be an All-Star every year, but now DeJounte, he has to fight for it. So how is he going to deal with that? How is that going to work out with this team? I think it's going to be a bad year for them, man. I know we expect mediocrity out of them, and it's okay for that, but it's going to be a disappointing year. After all of that, after I feel like there's no expectations and no one gives a shit, I think it's going to be very disappointing that they might be below 500. I just don't think they're going to be able to figure it out with this team. They always have who's the one that's always on the trade block? The power forward, not Clint Capella. John Collins.
I mean, so when Gambo tweeted out that thing about a power forward, everybody's like, dude, John Collins. It's like John Collins, prior to the start of last season, signed a 5-year, $125 million contract. He's not an unrestricted free agent until 2026. He's got a player option in 25, 26. That's like 3-4 seasons out. You know what I'm saying? So if you want John Collins, you're going to have to give up pretty pennies. There's a couple things I want to talk about when it comes to the Hawks. I completely agree with you, Matthew. It's a team that, remember when Chris Paul and James Harden played together? Now, granted, those teams won a lot of games, but you had 2 ball-dominant players who, when the playoffs come, couldn't get it done because
they were mature.
Exactly. They were, and that's why they won 67 games. This is 2 younger guys. Here's the problem with Atlanta. Atlanta is so concerned with making Trae Young happy, as well they should, right? He's their star. Okay, you look at their roster, he's $37 million a year. That's what Trae Young's going to get paid this year. But what they do every season is they do, where we talk about with the Phoenix Suns, how we have organic chemistry and this instincts that I know where every guy's going to be on the court at every time. They're constantly plugging in new guys next to Trae Young every season that there's no continuity in Atlanta. You saw that last year. They, again, bring in a bunch of guys. They got Danilo Gallinari, and they got, they bring in Bogdan Bogdanovic, and they got all these, new guys on the team. And then they suffer because they have no continuity. And you couple that with the fact that they bring in a ton of offensive guys, and it's a team that lacks defense because Trae Young is a 0 on defense. So this year they do it again. Again, I'll pull the graphic up. They bring in Frank Kaminsky, Aaron Holiday, Trent Forrest, DeJounte Murray, Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, Tyrese Martin. That is 7 new players on this team plus 2 draft picks. Now, granted, they traded one of the draft picks, so that's 8 new players on this team. They got rid of Kevin Huerter because, he was kind of duplicitous in their lineup, and it's just, I'm with you, Matthew. I'd be very shocked if this team is not hovering around 500 around the end of the season because they just, and to Suns Geek point, Murray does bring defense, and that's the reason they bring him in. So shout out to Suns Geek. If it has to do with the Phoenix Suns, he's going to make a video about it. And he's probably making a video about our podcast. And he's like, listen, I'm going to talk about the Suns podcast. It has to do with the Phoenix Suns, so I'm clearly going to make a video about it.
It's like those people that watch things and you just sit there and you watch them watch things. Yeah.
Yes.
You could do that.
It's literally an entire show of Suns Geek watching this podcast. It's high quality television. How does he react to our shitty takes? But again, Atlanta's a team that I just don't have a lot of faith in again. And like you said, I don't care. Maybe it's the West Coast biased on me, but it's like Atlanta's always just kind of in this they just can't find continuity because they're not allowing themselves to get stick with the same roster for a season, one extra season. I guarantee you Trae Young is going to be great, but and he still is great, but I don't know.
He's great. And he gets a lot of shit. I don't mean no one cares. They get a lot of shit when they don't win. Trae Young does. I feel like the Hawks don't as a team, but it's always Trae Young. So I think the race for the championship is on, basically between him and Doncic, because I think that's just still a thing. I think the reason,
it will be. It will always,
last year
because they will be forever connected.
they overturn the roster almost every year now because they
Mhm.
want to surround him with players that look and seem like they might be the best players available to surround him with. It doesn't always, probably won't ever make sense, but it just depends how these guys adapt. I hope it works out. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to. I think it's gonna be one of the worst teams, like just kind of just disappointing teams next year. Not the worst team, but just very disappointing.
Agreed with that 100%. So, all right, last graphic. Let's bring this up. We're going to talk about the Miami Heat, and Matthew's going to read it.
All right, this one's a tough one, guys.
I know.
So via free agency, Javonte Smart. So they actually didn't trade anybody this year. So the Heat are on the down low too with this one. There's like nothing on here. This is just hilarious.
I knew. They're like the Bucks, though. The Bucks were the favorites to win their division, and they had almost no movement. The Heat, another team that is favored to win their division, almost no movement. So continue to fuck it up, Matthew.
So the NBA draft, who they drafted 27th pick was Nikola Jovic.
Yeah,
Nikola Jovic.
It's literally spelled like Nikola Jokic, but instead of a K, it's a V in his name. Like, that won't confuse anybody ever. But good call on
exactly,
that.
man. And then they lost PJ Tucker to Philadelphia, Markieff Morris to Brooklyn. Congratulations,
just signed with
Markieff
them
Morris.
2 days ago.
Yeah, very happy for you. I think a lot of Suns fans wanted him back. I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah, that was strange.
That was kind of strange. But free agents,
they're like, Gambo put out a tweet about a power forward. It's got to be Markieff Morris. It's like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. So free agents, they added or they have Mikal Mulder and Vince Scully. Or not Vince Scully, the two X-Files. Sorry, Mulder reminded me Mulder and Scully from X-Files. They're starting 5 though, and it's probably I feel like it's gonna be something that changes mid-season for sure. I have a few trade ideas for this one. Kyle Lowry, point guard, shooting guard, Victor Oladipo. Small forward is Caleb Martin, power forward, Jimmy Butler, and the center Bam Adebayo.
Well done. 3 claps for Matthew.
Yeah.
There you go. So looking at this team, there's a reason why on DraftKings they're the odds-on favorite to win the division. Only though at a plus or a negative 180. It's a team that's been there before, right? They were in the finals 2 years ago. They're a team that is perennially in the playoffs. They have Heat culture, all that fun stuff. So everybody gets excited about that. And I think that with Jimmy Butler, with Bam Adebayo, with the leadership of Kyle Lowry, knowing that they still have Tyler Hero and they've got that solid bench behind them, they're a team that in theory should win this division. What does that mean in final seeding in the Eastern Conference? Yeah, it's like a 5 seed, right? We talked about it a couple podcasts ago when we were previewing, I forget the name of the divisions, the one that the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers, like that and the Boston Celtics, like that's going to count for 3 of the top 5 seeds in the Eastern Conference. And then you're probably going to get the Bucks in there too. That's the 4 seed. So whoever wins this division, like, good luck. You're the 5 seed.
Yep. And I'm just thinking there's going to be a few trades that are going to happen. So Bam Adebayo is always one of those guys that's thrown out there. He's like the DeAndre Ayton for us, right? Everyone on the outside thinks Bam is great. Inside, it's like, oh, is he going to be traded or what? We need to upgrade. Very weird, but there's 2 guys. So I think one of these 2 might happen. I think what's going to happen is, so I'm trying to bring it up, of course.
Dwayne Dedman?
No. So I think you can either do Bam straight up for Ingram, which I think Zion, when he comes back, I think the Ingram-Zion mesh is not going to work. I don't think it's going to work at all, so you're going to have to trade Ingram. And then Siakam playing on the Raptors, going to have a down season. I think Bam for Siakam will be a straight-up trade. I think they just need that big guy that's a ball handler. Both those dudes can do that, get you big shots. So I look forward to seeing that happening. I think that's something that's really going to happen. And then I'm just thinking point guard too. Like, can't you just have Jimmy B basically the guard and then have Tyler Hero start too? Because I know you're going to have issues with Kyle Lowry going down the line or towards the end of the season just because he's so old, right? Last year we kind of saw it. We saw he kind of fell off. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. That's why I'm just like, they should make a big trade, but will they even get anywhere in the playoffs? Even if they pull off like a Siakam or Ingram, it just doesn't seem like the roster is ready for a playoff push or even a championship push.
Yeah, and I don't know if adding those pieces necessarily makes,
That's what I'm saying.
pushes them to that next level.
Yeah.
Do you think that Jimmy Butler can have like an MVP type season this season with the Heat, given this roster?
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't matter.
Oh man,
I mean,
I've
it
always
really doesn't.
the last 2 times you've asked me, I've always in deep thought, looking down at my hands. I'm like, you know what? But I was gonna say, like 3 years ago, no one thought Jimmy Butler was this good. All right,
Yeah,
so I was gonna
facts.
say it might be something where it happens just because it's Jimmy Butler and everyone doubts him.
Yeah, I mean, and again, he's a great talent and he's a player who thrives on anybody doubting him. But I don't think in any way, shape, or form, he always has the health issues. Again, Miami it's a team, and this division is kind of a team in the division in the middle, and they would have to take. It's interesting you said the Brandon Ingram trade. I would love to see something like that.
Go to
and
the
you know what
Heat?
you called Porzingis last year, so maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. So we'll just look back and see. This is a division that a lot of offense, not a lot of defense. It's always interesting when the Suns play them to see a lot of that offense, and sometimes we lose in shootout fashion because they have it. But there you go. That's the Southeast Division in the NBA and the Eastern Conference, and that's it for the Eastern Conference. Fucking A, we're done with that. I'm excited. Next week, we're going to start on the Western Conference. Teams that we obviously are going to know a lot better, given the fact that we play them all the time. We have the Western or the Northwest Division, the Southwest Division, and obviously the Pacific Division. I think we should start with what? The Northwest next week, Matthew?
Yeah, I love that area. I go up there a lot.
Yeah, the PNW.
Look at the sunset and go by the beach.
Well, that's the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, the Portland Trailblazers, and the Utah Jazz. So we'll be talking about them on the next edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. Anything else you want to throw out there before we take off tonight, Matthew?
No, is there something that's going on with Cameron Johnson or Jay Crowder? I keep seeing things about their names are popping up, but I can't find anything. So
I can't either. I saw something on Jay Crowder, and they're like, well, what he's saying on Twitter these days. And then I went to his Twitter account. He hasn't said anything since August 1st, which was the whole, like, like, you just got to continue to improve or whatever. So I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think boredom is really starting to hit us, and people are
crazy.
like Cameron Johnson likes something on Instagram, and everybody's like, oh, it was Tyler Hero's picture. He's gonna be a member of the Heat. And it's like, no, Tyler Hero's a sexy dude. He's just clicking like on it. You can't blame him.
It was an accident, right?
It was an accident. Yeah. He was trying to scroll up and he actually hit it. He double tapped. And he's like, oh shit. So I don't know.
I don't know if he's that sexy, but yeah.
No, not really. He thinks he is though. Tyler Harrell thinks he's the sexiest dude alive.
Because he probably has a monster cock, just like Devin Booker, dude.
Exactly. When he turns, he knocks over lamps, and then the chicks come running. So
that'll make you feel pretty hot. That'll make you feel very confident.
100%, 100%. He doesn't drive a big truck. I'll tell you that. He drives around in like a little Ferrari, Corvette,
a little Geo,
a little Geo, and he steers that shit with his dick. No, So, anyways. If you got nothing else, I guess that's it for August. We made it, Jamsters. We made it through this shitty fucking month. Yeah. So, again, thank you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you consume this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. If you're not watching on YouTube, go to YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment. And, again, if you're on Apple Podcasts, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. How do you feel about your 3 fantasy football drafts we were in the last 3 nights? Which team do you hate the most?
Can I say something? Are you gonna cut me off? Okay. Last night's, I don't know if I think I like them all. I feel like I got all the players I wanted. Mm-hmm. It's just the after effect of looking at the review. I finished last, so my prediction is I'm 1-13, 1-13, 1-13 in every fucking league.
Those things are always wrong, dude. I didn't even get the reviews.
But like, how is that possible? It's like I picked who was basically there. I picked who everyone told me to pick. And I got them, basically.
If you're winning the league, it's like you're going to be 6-7. So it's like I never listen to that.
Okay.
How confident? Like of your 3 teams, which one do you like the most, and which one do you like the least?
Okay, so the banquet league where I do have Russell Wilson and Cornelius. Like I think that team up and down.
You got a lot of Broncos, man. I was really high on the Broncos.
AFC, every time I have a team full of AFC players, that's my favorite team. And I don't know why I just don't do that every year. Maybe because I just don't get the players ahead of me.
Well, but this year it's very AFC dominant. And like one thing I really want to do is get a piece of that Broncos offense, and I didn't get a bunch of it. There's like 2 offenses I wanted. I wanted part of the Vikings and part of the Broncos. I just don't feel like I got enough of those pieces. But to that point, the banquet league, I got Mike Williams. So I got kind of the number 1/2 from the Chargers. I got Juju Smith-Schuster, the number 1 kind of /2 from the Chiefs. And then I got Jared Jeudy, who's the number 2 in Denver. So at least I got part of that division, because those will be fun shootouts, sitting around watching football, watching the AFC West go back and forth and hit each other. That'll be kind of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I honestly, this is the first year where I've liked my teams, and I didn't do a whole lot of prep, but you listen to the podcast, they give you the guys that they like, and they give you their top players to get each round. I feel like I got them. So we'll see. I trust in them, just like the CBS podcast I listen to for baseball. That's all I do is listen to that. And I've gone pretty far. Kind of. So,
and I haven't listened to it. And I'm giving up on fantasy baseball this year.
I know you're all done. Over. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, and everybody's asking me right now. They're like, dude, Dodgers are on fire, man. Dodgers are on fire. 90 wins. I'm like, I'm a Dodgers fan. It's the same shit every year. Fucking do it in the playoffs, man. We always peak too early.
They did 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Okay, which would be like, because it was a shortened season, right about now, where they're just crushing.
Oh my God.
Well, it's like right after the All-Star break, they crush it. And then they start to rest their guys for the last 2 weeks, and then they fucking suck in the playoffs. Like, it's the same movie every effing year. And
hey, at least you're not losing to the Angels again. 2-3. God damn it. I mean, Judge has to hit 100 home runs this year just to get those wins.
Yeah, what's he at, 50?
He's at 50. I thought he got 51 yesterday, but that was the 50th was yesterday. So.
Gotcha. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, Jamsters. Thanks for hanging out here. Matthew and I talk about bullshit that you don't care about. So,
thank you.
See you next Wednesday, folks. Take care.
Bye-bye. Have a good family. Check your phone, family.